Welcome, everybody, to Tuesday Morning Ryan, episode number 44. Today we have Ryan Yackel with us. Ryan is the VP of Product Marketing and Head of Content over at Keyfactor. Super experienced in building marketing programs for startups and high-growth tech companies. Was the Director of Product Marketing over at Tricentis, and then also did a stint at Macy's and I think CGI, right? So we're going to learn everything you wanted to know. Yeah, everything all of our listeners that are in the startup ecosystem wanted to know about marketing, we'll talk about. So I met Ryan at a coffee shop based on a recommendation from a mutual colleague that we have. And basically, Ryan put myself and our chief revenue officer through a boot camp in about an hour. And I was like, dude, you got to get on the podcast.
It was the coffee. That's what we had. That was the reason. We had like 5 espressos and I was just talking 100 miles an hour. And that's how we got through it in that short amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan, I thought how we like to start it off is just like your background. How did you get into marketing and kind of your journey?
Yeah, so I got into marketing in a very non-traditional way. I feel like a lot of people, well, first of all, I think they go to college, or they start at an entry level kind of marketing job, go to college, get some marketing degree or whatever, and they happen to get into marketing usually through like an agency. Is usually I've seen this happen. So lots of agencies out there to help you with PPC and SEO and email and all these kind of things you just kind of want to outsource, right? So a lot of them kind of go that route. And then they kind of say either you like the agency side or you say, I want to get back into doing something that's more on with a full-time at a company and be in that marketing program there. That's usually the way marketing people kind of come about.
Yeah.
Mine's totally different. I graduated with a finance degree, and then I went into being a software tester. Was the first job I had. This was back in 2010. So as you know, Christian, the economy was really just thriving. It was, I was getting job offers like crazy. No, that's complete opposite, right? I was like going to every single day. I was going to the internet and typing in, entry level jobs for college kids. Can I get some type of job?
The heart of the recession.
Like
everybody's nightmare to graduate college when there's no jobs.
Man, it was bad. And before I got became a software tester, I was actually making donuts at this place called Dutch Monkey Donuts in Cumming, Georgia. And I was waking up at 3:00 in the morning and making donuts. And then, when I got home, I was just online calling people, just trying to get a job. I got turned down probably 12 times in interviews I went to. And so it was really encouraging, back then. But I got my first job as a software tester, and it's with a company called CGI, that stands for Consultants to Government Industry. They're a Canadian company, and they're a consulting software company. So I got my first start there. I moved to Troy, Alabama with my wife, South Alabama. Never thought I'd ever be in South Alabama for a job. I didn't know they even had tech jobs down there, but there's a great facility down there, a good campus right next to Troy University actually. And I was there for about a year and a half, just doing software testing. So anytime development was pumped out from the consultant or from the clients we had, we do our testing and make sure it's good to go. And during that time, I got to know I fell in love with the software space, software world. And I started to own or to be really a part of one of these products that CGI was selling. It was called ATSM, which was automated. I think it stands for automated testing, ATSM, automated testing solution management, something like that.
I love how CGI names things exactly what they are, like their company.
I wish I remembered it, but it's basically an automated testing framework, right? And so what I was doing though was we were basically building out these automated frameworks for web testing and for client application testing. And so I started to actually demo that software internally to our clients. So I got my first start, which this makes a point what I'm getting to, which is like I started in that area. I started to get into sales engineering. So in sales engineering, what you're doing is you are basically selling the value of the product and showing you have technical expertise and showing differentiation. You're doing all these things that marketing, you end up doing in marketing. That's exactly what you end up doing, right? Then from there, I moved back to Georgia. I worked at Macy's IT division. And I was an enterprise software testing lead there. And I got out of the whole sales engineer aspects. I was going right back into testing. So I was there for about 2 years. And a company reached out to me called Symphony. And they said, hey, we basically want people that know the space, the software testing space, but don't want to be a software tester, but know how to sell the software. So I took the experience I got from CGI being a sales engineer, that brief time I was there, and my just appetite for not wanting to be in IT really full time anymore. And I moved to QA Symphony, where I was the lead sales engineer there.
Do you remember how big QA Symphony was at the time? Because they're like a very well known successful, have as exited startup here in Atlanta, but I imagine they were probably pretty small when you started.
Oh yeah, we were 10 people. So I mean, we were crammed in. We were subleasing. We had a very small office space. It was right across from Prominence Tower now in Atlanta, right across from Tech Village. We were in Tech Village. We moved out of there, and we were subletting like part of that office because we were so small. But then we took that company. We went from 10 people to 150 people within like 4 years. And we just had this insane growth. I mean, it was insane growth of just basically selling software testing solutions to enterprises and to mid enterprise companies. And so it was a fun ride. I mean, it was basically like I always talk about, it's like lightning in a bottle. And, as I was there, I was basically talking to our CMO and our head of demand gen, and they were asking me things like, hey, like, how do you position this? What should the website say about that? Could you get on a webinar and talk about best practices for agile software testing? And so I started to get more and more into the marketing world. And then it kind of just so happened that I was in the marketing world so much, they said, we need to create a position, that's where I became director of product marketing. And so that's when I first got my first official marketing job that I got at QA Symphony. And then at Tricentis, I was global director of product marketing. And now I'm VP of product marketing and content over here at Keyfactor. So that's a quick synopsis of how I got to marketing, which is not anywhere near usually the traditional role that people usually get pushed in when they get into product marketing.
Yeah, there's something special about like growing up in an industry, and you just have so many different perspectives. So now you uniquely understand the challenge of a marketer trying to understand the product and position it in the market. You know what I mean? So there's always some goodness to be had there. Keyfactor. So you've been there. How long have you been at Keyfactor now?
Coming up on 2 years. So I joined back in March when the pandemic just kicked off. So that was fun. That was a great time to switch jobs. It was a great time to switch jobs until it wasn't. It was like, oh gosh, like now
that's when our chief revenue officer started at that same time, and he was like, oh no, what did I do? I resigned and joined the startup.
It's true, man. It was crazy. I have never had like a panic attack ever, and I didn't have one. But I got to close to one as I ever had during the pandemic, because it was just starting a new job is stressful enough. But when you layer on the fact that, hey, your kids are now at home with you, hey, you can't go in the office, hey, all those people you're going to hang out with and get a jump start on the industry and know the space and meet your team, all that's on hold. I mean, it was just one after the other. So it was pretty crazy, but made it through, and it was a good learning experience for me as well, just to be able to take charge and manage remotely really fast and figure it out.
So when you started in like a tech company like Keyfactor, you're supposed to do the marketing thing. What's that look like? Like your first 90 days? How are you onboarding? How are you kind of getting a plan put together?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I do is I try to first understand the space as much as I can before I start implementing any tactical things. And this is a problem with a lot of marketers. Like, they don't do this. Like, they get into very execution modes. They start to grab onto, well, let me grab the PPC channel and look how to optimize with the budget, or let me go look at the website and start designing graphics and do this, or let's start, I don't start anywhere near that. So I start with, I immediately went to our founders and started talking to them. Say, can you give me a crash course in the industry? Just tell me, just why we got into this space. What's our value prop according to you? Why are we winning? Where are we losing? Just all these things to help you frame anything in marketing before you get going, before you actually put your boots to the ground, right? You don't want to start diving in, implementing any changes until you actually understand the space. And that took a while. It took about a month and a half, 2 months. I mean, I'm still learning the space as well, but to really get into it and figure it out. At the same time, what I'm doing is I'm identifying gaps. So you can do that as well. Before you start implementing anything, you can start to identify gaps. So one of the things I did when I came in was I had a huge content gap analysis that I did. And content gap analysis, right, is basically thinking about what are the things that you are talking about or producing. Like this is a content piece we have right now. This is a podcast, right? What are and what web pages are we missing? What guides or how-tos or best practices? What gaps we have in SEO? What gaps we have in content that's not even talking to the persona that we say are targeting, right? And then taking all that, aligning it with all the different stages in a buyer cycle, whether it's top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, and figure out kind of where these are in awareness, consideration, decision area. Have all of that. And then before you do anything, your next step is then look at your competition and see what the heck they're doing, right? That helps you frame everything in perspective of like what you need to focus on for your next 6, 8, 12 months as you get going in marketing. That's the way I've done it and in the past, and that's why I did it here. And it's always been out to be very, very helpful and fruitful when you take that slower approach to it without stop and not jump in and start executing, because you can start executing and then 3 months down the road, you realize, wow, I just had a totally different focus in an area that I don't even understand.
So one of the things to execute on that is like patience from the founders, frankly, because I think it's easy to fall in this trap of like wanting immediate demand or wanting immediate return on investment. And I feel like marketing is one of those things you have to give it a little bit of time.
Yep.
You have to put a content strategy together. You got to go out there, sow seeds, and then you start seeing the uptick in inbound. So what are those conversations like for you with like the business owners, the founders, especially in a startup, to like get that time and patience?
Well, this goes back to anything. It's really something about like expectations, right? I mean, the expectations thing is huge. I mean, even when I took this job, I had said very specifically, this is what I'm really good at. And this is these are areas of growth areas for me. Like I'm going to get there, in a few months or whatever, but like this stuff I can execute on or do really, really well. And I have expertise in this area. These are growth areas for me. So if you want immediate results, you're going to get them from the areas I know how to do really, really well. The other areas you just need need time to breathe, right? An example of this is search engine optimization or SEO. When I got there, I realized that we had absolutely no focus whatsoever on getting inbound organic leads to our website. Everything was event driven. And what happened during the pandemic? That wasn't very good. Like all of our events just got totally blown up, right? We couldn't do anything in terms of events. Everything went virtual, which is not even close to being as impactful as in-person events, right? So when that happened, I looked at our user traffic rates month over month, and we were averaging around like 5,000 users a month. Within about 18 months, we've scaled that now to 30,000 new users a month. So do the math on that, right? I mean, taking that and having a plan in place to say, listen, we're going to get to a state of extremely high growth, high traffic content to our website or users to our website, but it's going to take a long time for that to actually to occur. So setting the expectation of like SEO is not immediate. You're not going to see that huge jump within 6 months, 8 months or whatever. But as you start to put out more stuff, you start to optimize your SEO, you start to engage in backlinks and build backlinks for those articles, pointing back to those articles, you'll see that it's compounding over and over and over with your SEO growth. Another area that I said was setting expectations. We're going to be capped and limited to a certain point until we do something else. Like that's another big thing. Like when you set expectations with the business, is being able to say, this is what we can do, current state, current budget. This is what we can do, future state, future budget. So the onus then goes back to the business and you say, if you want these things, I can get these for you, but you got to give me some more money. You got to give me some more resources. You got to, I'll commit to doing this thing for you, but I'm not going to sign up for something I know it's not going to succeed. And so one of the areas that I was just kind of talking to them about was like, we need to make sure that every single content piece that we push out needs to be associated with one parent domain. And we had like 3 subdomains that were going on to the website. So if you think about it, sometimes people will stand up a website on WordPress and then they buy HubSpot, they buy some other, marketing automation tool, CRM suite. And that tool then will say, well, you can create a website over here. You can create subdomains over here. And what was going on was we had a blog and a resources page that were both blog dot and info dot back to the Keyfactor domain. And what was going on was that those were actually hurting our overall SEO score because it didn't recognize it fully as connected to the one parent domain. So a big thing I had to set expectations was like, we have to migrate all this stuff. You know how long it's going to take to migrate all these blog pages and resource pages over to WordPress? Now, in the long term, it's going to be great for us. But that's another expectation you have to set. You have to set, hey, if you want this, you're going to have to wait a little bit. And oh, by the way, it's going to cost some money to actually get that over. So those are a couple examples of kind of setting expectations.
Yeah, that's what we hired a head of marketing, I guess, 3 months ago or something.
Yep.
And he's been doing, which is nice to hear, just doing a lot of the same things you're doing, like come in and do an observation period, learn the industry, then come back with an initial assessment. Yep. And he's actually working with us this week to talk about budget. And he's already kind of set my expectations where he's going to say, look, this is what we can do today. You feed the monster and this is a little bit of what you can get. So thinking about that, for marketing, for most folks, it's kind of a black box. You spend money and it's hard to attribute return on investment on some of the stuff. Some things you can, from an outsider's perspective, from a novice's perspective. Like I think Google Ads, like it's easier to attribute leads to that because they came from Google, you're paying for Google. But other things like content marketing and stuff like that, sometimes it's more difficult for the novice to understand if that's good investment. Mm-hmm. Since you're an insider, like what are you thinking? What are you looking at to see if things are worth the spend or worth the time?
Well, I mean, the example of like Google, like Google PPC or display ads or things like that, that is, you can definitely attribute and say, hey, we spent X amount of money in this particular ad, and that got X amount of clicks and X amount of conversions or whatever. But you can do the same thing with content. I mean, I can say, listen, we're going to spend X amount of money on this industry report, and I'm going to build systems in place that when they download this report, we can attribute content attribution to this downloading of a report so that we know that they came in through this particular, this conversation point. And so if they ultimately convert on, like they've submit a demo request or an SDR reaches out to them or whatever, well, content influenced that, marketing influenced that, right? Marketing's influencing everything. So you can't just measure it based off of last touch. Last touch attribution models doesn't tell you the whole picture of like how you're actually, how your marketing dollars are being used in the entire buyer's journey. And the other thing is that, I mean, even if like, but the other thing too is like, you can't look at a marketing only through a single funnel stage. So like I would argue that a lot of the Google ads that you're going to be using on display or PPC or whatever, right? They're going to be more around a bottom of funnel action. So if I'm looking for a security audit for ISO blah, 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 right? And you're bidding on those key terms to go after and you click on it, you're like kind of like, well, yeah, they should click on it because they're looking for it. They're already in that motion, right? But that's like demand capture. That's like the easy stuff, right? The hard stuff is bringing the awareness and getting them to consideration phase, which is, it requires a lot more different tactics than just, putting in money to an ad display on Google. That's not going to get them to convert. Like that's not going to make them move all the way down, right? It may help a little bit, but most of that's kind of geared towards this bottom of funnel where they're looking for stuff and they're actually already aware of the problem that they have. And they want to, talk to somebody to then possibly, purchase or go into a partnership with them. So you got to think about it from that lens of, it's not just this, how can I attribute ROI to this last touch model? You got to think about through the entire journey.
Yeah. So when you started at Keyfactor, like you walk in, new industry, you probably don't know, like, who's the folks on the other end of this thing making the buying decisions. Like, what's your discovery process to kind of figure out personas, think about buying motivators, things like that?
So it's looking at it's talking to everybody internally at the company, but then it's also like, so that'd be like the founders, head of product, whatever. It's also talking to the sales team. Like, you've got to talk to the sales team. Like, those have the most knowledge, like deep seated knowledge that you may not know about, because you just don't. A lot of times marketers aren't even. This blows my mind. A lot of times marketers don't even care to talk to sales about like how they win this deal. They just want to know that they got the deal from a content piece or a PPC thing or an email, so they can go, oh, look what we did, look what marketing did. It's like, no, like, you got to talk to the sales team and figure out like how these conversations went during the sales cycle. How'd the POC process go? What were the qualifying questions that they had? What were the questions that were indicators that they were actually serious about this and not just typical discovery questions, right? All these discovery questions are usually to help frame up what you're about to present based off that considered need. But what are those unconsidered needs that you had no idea about that actually put you in a position to win against the competition? Those are huge things. I mean, those are huge in figuring out like what types of content to focus on and build, and what messages to actually say and build. That stuff is huge. So definitely talking to sales. Definitely talking to the teams out there. I got connected with customer success, and I just said, I need you to connect me with customers. And in security, that's really hard. Like, I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's security, but everyone is like very cautious about like talking to you about anything. But I just said, hey, listen, I'll give you a $200 Grubhub card if I can just talk to you. And like, somebody's like, all right, well, I won't turn down $200, but I'll easily trade $200 for an hour session of data that I can use to figure out like what I need to focus on, kind of in the future. Right. Another one is like, so in the sales, like talking to the sales team is really good, but a lot of times sales, they can't recall like every single detail. Like, they'll recall the big moments. So they're really good at the big moments. Like, okay, this is where the tide shifted, was this or that, right? But they don't remember, the titles of these peoples a lot of times. Like, they have, their Salesforce records. They have a bunch of stuff in there. That's also gold. Like, going into your Salesforce record and seeing every single person that was a part of the deal or deal making decision, that allows you to say, okay, these are all the different personas that made up this particular deal. Let's go ahead and map them back to persona cards and have that as a very practical thing, so that we can go back to and say, hey, these 5 different titles that also I can link to on LinkedIn to show an example of that person aligned to this global, econ technical champion buyer. And that gives us a very practical way of looking at our customer versus going, Suzanne Johnson is a head of security at this company. Her interests are blah, blah, blah. Like, that doesn't really do anything for you. It's actually a lazy way to create persona cards. You got to have very particular set of things you can link back to as examples to justify the persona card creation. If not, you're just making it up on the fly, I feel like. So those are areas where I would go to figure out like the industry, the persona, who we're talking to, what problems we're trying to solve. There's a lot of other stuff too, but those are like the table stakes, what you do.
So a lot of the marketing gurus, it just seems like they're genius marketers. That's the way they market themselves. They're big idea folks. They know the shortcut, the secret, how to get people's attention.
I'm super smart, Christian. Yeah. Look at me. Feel smart.
Of course. Yeah. Versus a system. And so like Ryan McGowan, there's so many Ryans in my life. Ryan McGowan's our chief revenue officer. When he came in, he was big about sales systems. So like, you're not going to trick anybody into buying anything. So you got to have a system to bring them and educate them and help them and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Then when I talk to someone who's really good at marketing, I hear a lot of that same stuff. It's like a system. So what is the balance between creativity? Like, I'm just really good at coming up with campaigns and stuff versus like, I have a system of marketing. Is there some balance, or is it just like all system and the gurus are faking it?
Well, I mean, it depends on like the gurus, right? I think what you're trying to get to is there is a debate between the aspect of like demand generation, which is usually attributed to things like okay, you got to create a campaign that has X amount of elements to it, because what we're going to do is we're going to take them and we're going to put them down this funnel where they're going to enter in this industry report. Then we're going to give them a webinar. Then we're going to give them a panel discussion. And then we're going to give them an event, virtual wine event that we're going to be doing, and invite them to that. And then they get closer and closer and closer. Then they're going to look at a buyer's guide. And they're going to like, that type of thing is like usually what's encapsulated with like demand generation, which is like we're trying to capture. The whole point is capturing the lead. You got to capture the lead and then figure out if it's a qualified lead to then give it to sales. Like that's basically what it is. There's another aspect that would say, and it's not saying that you don't, but by the way, all those things, the reason why people like all those things, because they're very easy to track. So this gets back into your systems question, right? I can easily, if I can get that person to download this thing, well, awesome. I can get them in the system, and now I have a new lead, and I can market to them, and I know where they are, and I can email them, and whatever. It's like we get really excited about that because we have new people that are coming into this Keyfactor experience that we can then, help figure out how to solve those problems, right? We're trying to figure out who's a prime candidate to actually be to help, right? Because we want to help these people, right? We're not just trying to like send them stuff and sell them snake oil, right? We're trying to help people. We're trying to get them to a better state, right? But there's this other side of it where there's a lot of talk about like brand and brand voice and brand campaigns, and how do you build a brand that's not necessarily connected to that very linear funnel that or path that I just talked about. And so these people, and I'm not against any. I'm for both. Kate, you need to have both. In your marketing bag, you need to have both. That's the final point I was going to make. But getting back to the brand part, right? They'll say things like, "Well, why don't you start a podcast? Like Christian, you're doing a podcast right now. Why don't you start a podcast that you actually talk about industry stuff, and not in a way that talks about your company." But you're talking about a way to give value to somebody, irregardless if they actually become a customer of yours or not. And that's great. Like we do that with a lot of panel discussions we have at Keyfactor. We'll do a lot of, ask the CIO or ask the CTO, or like lessons learned from crypto experts, right? We bring in these expert people. We don't talk about our product at all. We just talk about solutions and problems and challenges. And that makes you appear that, this brand is very knowledgeable in this space. And I view them as the expert in this space. Now let me actually go and talk to them about maybe certain needs I have, right? So it's another example. It's an example of a brand campaign that you would do. Other brand campaigns are things that are like, you're totally isolated. You totally isolate what you do from the campaign to get your name out broader. So an example of that is at our past company, we did this thing called Software Testing Heroes. And it was all about highlighting the testing heroes in the software testing industry, because they're usually not looked at as valuable. I hate to say that word, but valuable as like software developers. They're not paid as much as software developers. They get a lot of flack if something goes out to production that's not tested properly. So our whole campaign was to celebrate these testing heroes, right? We didn't talk about Tricentis products. We didn't talk about Tricentis solutions. It was all about, hey, I want to nominate my testing hero, John, over in, on my remote team in Michigan, or if you have contractors, you want to remote, nominate people that are even across the entire world. Like that'd be a great way to bring awareness to these people that are doing an amazing job. Well, that's a way the Tricentis name just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then by your brand being recognized more and more, then people go, well, what's this company about? Like, what do they do? And then, they investigate and go, okay, well, maybe I need to look into this. So that's another way of doing it. But you got to do both. You can't not do both.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think there's also like this hidden benefit of like serving your existing customers, or the pride of your existing customers. At least for us, like we have a bunch of customers that'll reach out every once in a while, like, hey, I saw that podcast. That was pretty cool. And they just like it. So it's a good touch point with existing customers, not just at new.
Exactly. No, 100%. And then that's the other thing. Then when it comes into like customer acquisition versus customer retention, right? A lot of the things that you're doing in that brand area, it facilitates both, because customers that want to be retained want to be a part of a cool company. They want to feel like they are, when they're writing the check or, renewing each year, that they're renewing with a company that is ahead of the curve, up to speed on things, and they can be proud of that company. Even if it's like a ancillary thing. Like for me, I'm really proud to use some of our software, marketing tools. And I view these tools as the de facto leader in the space, and it'd be very hard pressed to convince me otherwise. Even if they've got a lot of other tools that are out there that do the same thing, even at lower prices, probably, I'm still going to go with this company over here.
Yeah.
Because I want to. I was going to say one more thing about that too, which is, I think I didn't mention, which is the community building aspect. So this works really, really well with open source teams or freemium models that are out there, which is, hey, we want to give you something away for free and build a community around it so that you get value out of this and you recognize value very quickly. And guess what? If you only use that freemium model, if you only go the open source route and don't look to upgrade into enterprise model, that's okay. We still love you. We still care about you. We're still going to keep pouring into that community because it shows you that you have this trust with this community, that if they eventually go, you know what, I think I want to go onto the next tier, whatever, you're either going to be the first person they reach out to. They're not going to start this whole process all over again, right? They're going to go, hey, I'm built into this community. I love this community. This is great. And from there, let's see how it goes. But they're not going to just cut bait and just run and go do that whole process all over again. It's not worth their time.
Yeah, we did that. The way we motivated ourselves to start creating videos was we were like, look, let's just out teach the competition.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to result in leads, but let's just start putting free security training out there. Let's talk about things people care about. And the worst thing that can happen is people find value in it and they appreciate us, creating it.
Well, so and with that aspect too is like, I think a lot of times when people hear this, they think it's kind of like a bait and switch, but it's not. You're not trying to do that. You are actually, the only reason people would say that is if they listened to something or read something or part of something and saw no value in it. Well, in that case, they're not going to continue. If you continually see value and experience value, it's not a bait and switch. It's just hey, can we help you do something else? And that's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, for sure. So thinking about like stuff that non-marketers care about, like what was I talking about before we hired a head of marketing? I made a list of stuff. I would just want to get your take on it. So I think the number one thing that comes up is just website. Like everybody wants a cool website, wants it to look nice, SEO, all the things that you hear about. What are you thinking when you see website? How important is it? What factors should be considered?
So the website is your number one marketing asset at your company by far. And it's not because of I don't say that just because of the design elements, right? It's because like 80 to 90% of any type of lead volume is probably going to come through your website. I mean, you have SDRs and BDRs and partner relationships, right? You're building all that stuff out, right? But the majority of interest is primarily going to come through your website. So you have to have it optimized to get people there and keep people there. That's like the main thing. Now, one thing I do think is that design on websites can be way over-engineered, like extremely over-engineered, to where it doesn't have a user experience that would hold somebody's attention on the website. And what I mean by that is if you look at a lot of the like very prosperous product-led companies out there, like HashiCorp and Atlassian and Salesforce and whatever, their websites are not super flashy. They're kind of boring. I mean, they're great. They're beautifully designed, but they're kind of boring in that they have a lot of static images. They don't have a ton of video everywhere. They don't have all these graphic motions going everywhere. They're not trying to be cute and whatever. What they're trying to do is just say, this is what we do, and be very clear about the value of our products on each and every page that you go to. So what you're doing is you're optimizing your website so that you're not for, hey, look how cool marketing is in our website. Look at this is our output of us on our website. No, it's not about us. It's about if a customer comes to your website, how are you giving them enough information and not distracting them in a way that they're going to want to proceed to contact you, right? I mean, how many times you go to a website, you're like, oh my gosh, what is this thing? And you like hop out of there. And it was really cool and flashy and whatever, but if it's too busy and too, too out there, you're not going to hold somebody's attention.
Or you just don't know how to buy. I've been to websites. I wasn't previously conscious of this, but now that I'm trying to actually harvest, opportunities through a website, I've been to websites that give you a ton of good content, but there's like I don't know how to reach out.
Like how do I reach out? Yeah.
So it's like, oh, that's weird. So what are there like 2 or 3 things that you see, if you're thinking through a website that's like bang for your buck?
So I look for clear call to actions. So that would be to your point, which is like, how do I actually like do something? Extremely, this could be a little bit of I'm going to say 2 things here. Extremely like, informative navigation, but not being busy. That's a hard one. So a lot of times, like the navigation is like, you go there, navigation, there's like a billion things on there, right? Because you're like, oh, look at all the stuff we do. And you just hit their webpage and you want to make sure you can show everything, right? So making sure you have a really good navigation, but it's not like overbearing, and then all the other pages you want to get to, make sure they're optimized for SEO and whatever. But I'll give you an example why that's really important. We have a tool that we put on our website that, basically shows you the heat map and the user experience, somebody going to the website. So we spend a lot of time on our homepage, like, oh, homepage has got to be awesome. Got to have all this content on the homepage. Got to make sure whatever, right? What we found is that, like, the majority of people that come to our homepage it's like 30%, only 30% scroll. And so what that tells you is that somebody is evaluating immediately whether or not they are going to entertain anything you have to say based off of just the first, painted screen that you see on your laptop. So basically this much, that's it.
Yep.
And what they do is, you see all the data shows, they immediately go to the navigation. So what that's telling you is that you need to have an amazing, like whatever your message is at the very beginning.
Above the fold, yeah.
Above the fold, make sure that's money. And then make sure that navigation is spot on, because everyone is trying to figure out it's almost like they're wanting to tell you, I don't want you to tell me anything. I want to go figure it out myself. And so there's that. So I'd say, 1 is clear CTAs, 2 is a really good navigation, and 3 is like basically a why care? Why do I even care? So, I mean, one of the big things that we built over the past year, or actually this is like 2 months ago, is that we talked about like we built a section that was called Why Keyfactor. So if you go to a lot of places or a lot of websites, they have basically products, solutions, blog, company, partners, whatever, right? And you see more and more people, what they're doing is they're bringing in a section that's like why and then their company name. The reason, and it's actually a really like important thing. Like the reason is they're looking for validation. Like they're almost like, a lot of times you always say like, don't talk about yourself, talk about your customers. Yes, that's true. But if people are in a buying decision, their next step is like, okay, I've narrowed it down to Keyfactor and 2 other products, right? Okay, why should I choose Keyfactor, right? And they immediately go, well, why should I choose them, right? And a lot of times, even when you have a lot of product parity, which is everywhere these days, you got to stand out on a message. So if it's not a message and it's not something you're going to buy into of like why this company is so much better than anything that's out there, you're immediately going to go to a price compare or a feature compare, and you're going to default to price, which is not where you want to be in enterprise sales. That doesn't go well for anybody, because you have the people that are doing price cuts, and this is true. I'm saying this as a very, obviously, I could say that and be biased and okay, well, I want everyone to come and buy from Keyfactor. But the problem is that even people that price, if a person was going to price lower than us, or we're going to price lower than the competitor, that has an actual, usually a detriment to the customer, meaning they're just trying to price cut to win the deal. But when it comes to implementation and all these other things, they basically are not going to be profitable off of this sale. So what they're going to do is try to cut a bunch of corners. They're going to try to figure out ways to save costs, right? And that really good price point that you thought was really good now becomes something that's kind of a risk to your business, because now you can't get the thing off the ground. You have problems with deployment issues and all that. So it's important for people to buy into why change, why this company that I'm going to go with, and they have that validation that backs up that decision, especially in enterprise sales when you're not buying a $24 a month subscription service for 5 teams. You're purchasing enterprise software.
Yeah, that calls back to, like, I remember us being in the sales cycle sometimes, and we've had customers literally say, I'm preparing for an executive meeting. Like, can I get some talking points? Like, I just want them to feel really good about Risk 360. Like, what clients did you serve? What's your value prop? And we've talked about, like, adding that. We have some, actually some decks that, like, we provide to clients. Like, hey, if you're needing to sell this internally, like, here's a little bit about us just to help out.
Oh, yeah.
But put it around the website. It's helpful too. Social media. So, like, I feel like this is the most controversial topic because, I mean, there's a lot of variables. Are you B2C? Are you B2B? Which social media channels? Is there any, am I on TikTok or am I on LinkedIn? But what's your take on it? Social media worth the time? Is it a distraction?
Well, social media is table stakes. Like, you have to do it. At least in terms of showing that you're current on things that are out there. So, and social media also goes beyond just we're not talking about paid social. Here we're talking about just organic social. Is that correct? Is it?
Yeah.
It's organic social, right? And I would usually classify those in Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, right? And YouTube, I don't really view, YouTube's not, it's a media platform. I guess Instagram is another one. I don't think our company's on Instagram. It just doesn't make sense. We're on those areas, right? So one, using social media is to in case, this goes back to that marketing attribution model, right? Which is like, okay, well, let's say again, you're getting into this buying motion. You're getting into this, okay, I want to investigate. This company looks pretty good. Okay, let me go check them out on other areas. Are they up to speed on what's going on in the industry? What are they doing for their own community? Like, what are they, how is their careers? Like, what do they look like on Glassdoor? Like, is this a company that looks good on Glassdoor? Like, all those things come into play, not just for your potential customers, but also for your future employees as well. Like, I don't know about you, but if I were to go look for a new job, I'm going to go to Glassdoor, I'm going to go to Twitter, I'm going to go to Facebook, I'm going to look at all these different channels to see what type of company this is, right? I'll get a more holistic picture for that. And then if I'm actually going and buying software as well, like, I'll go and I'll check out their LinkedIn. I'll check out, like, what are they into? Are they do they have a good stance on the things that I care about? Companies are getting more and more social political and a lot of the things that go on. So it's important to kind of have a lot of that as a frame of reference when you're actually going and buying stuff or whatever. The other thing was the social media is really great at is also internal say culture for your own company. It's the best way to celebrate other people at your company publicly, right? We do a lot of that here at Keyfactor. We've got this tool called Lattice. It's an internal HR goal setting tool. So I sit down every quarter and I have, here are my KPIs and goals for each quarter, and here's my team, and here's what we're going to do, and whatever, right? But it's also really cool is I can give feedback publicly or privately to somebody on my team. And what's really awesome is Mary Matthews, our HR head of HR, she sends out every Friday a recap of all the public praises people have gotten to the entire company. And think about that. You could do that same thing on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever it is, right? Internal and public praise. So I think the social media and social goes more, if you're just looking at through the lens of like, oh, how can I organically get a lead from social that's not paid? That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's just, I would not bet on that. I mean, if you look at the amount of traffic that comes from to the website from social, that's also one of the lowest points for our perspective that gets traffic to the website as well. So anyway, just like, you got to do it. But if you look at through a way of all these other things that are going to add to it, besides the lead angle, which I don't think is a good way to view it, then I think it's great.
So I had a bunch of social conferences, paid, getting press, website, uh, where is the main source of leads coming from your experience? Is it a little bit of everything? You kind of just one of those things you got to invest in everything, or is there like one or two channels that companies should really be thinking about if their goal is leads?
Well, yeah, I mean, it really does depend on like the seller emotion as well. Like, I mean, if you're a very partner led company, then you just know that most of your leads are come through partners. So you're marketing to partners more so than you're marketing to end user clients, right? So for us, we have a partner channel and we have a direct sales channel. So most of our leads are coming through direct sales, and a lot of them are coming through partners as well, but most of them are direct sales. So how do you feel the direct sales funnel? Well, you do all these different things, right? But I mean, in terms of like what you just said is accurate. I mean, you need a mix of everything, because the goal of I mean, number one, the two main traffic sources that can get your website are going to be brand name keywords, so Keyfactor this, Keyfactor that, whatever it is, and then non-branded keywords. Like that, those are going to get you by far the most traffic to your website out of anybody. But if you're talking about like what do you need to invest in to have this holistic approach to marketing, you need to invest in everything to some degree, but focus on the areas that you know are going to drive the most opportunistic areas to convert a lead. And the reason why I say that is because we've been talking earlier about this whole idea that there's this funnel, right? This top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. That's a good way to frame things in terms of like the focus areas for different pieces of marketing campaigns or content you do. So, video here is, this is a top of funnel video, but this on-demand demo down here, that's more bottom of funnel. So people are actually in a buying motion that can go and like watch the video and do whatever, right? But the reality is marketing's job isn't to build a slide, it's to build a playground, right? So we want people to come in and they go, oh, look at the Keyfactor playground. Oh, there's the monkey bars, there's the swing, there's the merry-go-round, there's the slide. Okay. And all those could represent different areas of your marketing thing, because nobody is going to come through and go down this funnel in that specific way.
Yeah.
Right. They may come in and they be maybe top funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel. But you got to have the tools necessary for them to experience that.
Yep. Makes sense. Have you, last thing, have you seen a shift in, like marketing is traditionally, I feel like, to get sales, but for a lot of companies right now, the hardest thing is to get employees.
Yeah.
So are you guys having any conversations about like, look, our leads are actually trying to build a brand that employees want to work for? Have you seen any of that?
Yeah. I mean, this job market right now is bonkers. I mean, just like, housing prices right now, I feel like the job market is insanely inflated in terms of, because people with the ability to go in this direction or that direction, or go work in, the suburbs of whatever and still work from home or whatever, they just have all that autonomy now that they previously didn't have. And so they can be very specific and very picky about who they want to go work for. And so, I mean, for us at Keyfactor, we're constantly are figuring out ways and incentives for people to be, to view us as one of the best companies out there to work for. So that's why we do things like, no tracked PTO. We do 100% healthcare cover. We do stock options for some that come and join. We do a great maternity and paternity policy. We have very good work from home policy. As of right now, we want to go to more of a hybrid approach, I think, in the future for sure. I mean, I miss going in the office, so I'd be down with that. We do things like second Fridays of each month. So sometimes, our boss Jordan, he actually extended all of second Friday to be of each month. So once a month, but every second Friday of each month is for everyone to just take the day off. And if you're not in a 24-hour, support operations perspective, they trade off, obviously. We don't just say, everybody go home. But if you're not in one of those positions, it's like, hey, go home. Emails are not encouraged. Spend time with your family, do some things, and do that. And then, a couple other things that we do. Obviously we get time off to do community events. That's been a fun thing to be a part of. There's another big one that I always forget. Oh, I mean, this is one that isn't all the time, but it's kind of sporadic. So during the pandemic, like a big thing, I mean, our CEO and our HR team, we were very, very cautious about just making sure that everyone felt very safe during the pandemic. So it was basically like, listen, you got to go take your kid somewhere. You got to do this. That is your number one priority. I think they gave us at one point, they gave us like a $200, cleaning expense fee to use at any time we wanted to. Cool. I mean, just like stuff like that to just show to everyone that, hey, we care about you. We really do care about you. And we want to make sure that you're valued as, a person, not just an employee at Keyfactor, and that stuff can hold, if it needs to. So stuff like that, just very powerful.
It's just crazy. Yeah. I mean, we're a 40-person company, and well, it's just funny that it's come to this point, which I think is a good thing. We're like, we do a lot of those same things, like unlimited PTO, we do a sabbatical program, 100% healthcare, hybrid work environment, the list goes on. But it's cool that the job market is such and that companies are rising to the occasion to provide these benefits. Because I feel like if you went 20 years back, like anyone doing any of that stuff would have been like crazy. The Googles of the world are doing it. Now you have these startups like us, offering a lot of those same really good benefits. So that's good. That's a good thing. That's cool though.
Yeah.
So Ryan, thanks so much for joining, man.
Yeah, for sure.
If folks want to learn more about Keyfactor, learn more about you, where can they go?
Keyfactor.com. Pretty easy to spell. And you can reach out to me, LinkedIn, just /Ryan Yackel, I think it is for me. But if you need help with anything, PKI or certificate management related, let me know. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, they can visit keyfactor.com and see all of your mastery to see how good it is.
Well, I'll claim some, not all of it. I want to make sure.
Awesome. Well, if you guys enjoyed listening to stuff like this, you can check out Tuesday Morning Grind podcast on any of the podcast apps where you listen to podcasts, or you can check us on YouTube. Just search Risk 360 and you'll see that we have a playlist there. If you're wanting to build, certify, a security or privacy program, you can visit risk360.com, reach out to us, and we'll be in touch. So thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, man.